Have you ever thought about a world hidden beneath our feet? A secret place inside the earth where people, or maybe something else, live in a mysterious civilization? It's a wild idea, right? The thought that there could be a whole society living inside our planet, cut off from the rest of us, has been around for a long time. It's not just something people made up for fun. It's a story that's been told for centuries, in different ways by different people, all over the world. This idea, called the hollow earth theory, says that the earth isn't just a solid ball of rock, but has big empty spaces inside, maybe even a whole world with its own cities, rivers and skies. It sounds like something from a movie, but it's an idea that's been around for ages, passed down through stories, books, and even some early science. Let's dive into where this idea came from, how it grew, and why people have been so fascinated by it for so long. The story of a hidden world inside the earth starts way back, long before anyone had fancy machines to study the planet. People have always looked at the ground beneath them and wondered what's down there. Caves, tunnels, and deep holes in the earth made people curious. If you've ever stood at the edge of a dark cave and wondered what's inside, you're not alone. Thousands of years ago, people didn't have the tools we have today to figure out what's under the ground, so they used their imaginations. They told stories to explain the mysteries of the world. Some of these stories were about hidden places deep underground, where magical beings or lost civilizations lived. These weren't just random tales. They were ways to make sense of a world that was full of unknowns. One of the oldest ideas about a hidden world comes from myths and legends. Almost every culture has stories about places underground. In ancient Greece, people believed in the underworld, a shadowy place where souls went after death. It was ruled by a god named Hades and was described as a vast, dark kingdom beneath the earth. The Greeks didn't think it was a place where living people could go, but they imagined it as a huge hidden world with rivers and fields just out of sight. In other parts of the world, similar stories popped up. In ancient India, there were tales of a place called Patala, a beautiful underground realm filled with strange creatures and treasures. The people of Tibet told stories about Shambhala, a hidden kingdom that some said was inside the earth or in the mountains, a perfect place where wise beings lived in peace. These stories weren't about a hollow earth exactly, but they planted the seed that there could be something big and secret under the ground. As time went on, these myths got mixed up with new ideas. By the time people started writing things down, the stories grew bigger and more detailed. In some cultures, the underground wasn't just a place for the dead or mythical creatures. It was a real home for real people. For example, in Buddhist and Hindu traditions, there's a legend about a place called Agartha. Agartha is supposed to be a hidden kingdom deep inside the earth, filled with advanced people who know secrets the rest of the world has forgotten. Some versions of the story say it's a physical place you could find if you knew where to look, maybe through secret tunnels in the Himalayas or other mountains. Others say it's more of a spiritual place, not something you could just walk into. Either way, the idea of Agartha got people thinking, what if there's a whole civilization down there, living in ways we can't even imagine? These ancient stories were exciting, but they weren't the only reason people started believing in a hollow earth. A few hundred years ago, some very smart people, scientists even, began wondering if the earth really could be hollow. One of the first to suggest this was a man named Edmond Halley. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's the guy who figured out when a famous comet would come back to the sky. It's named Halley's Comet after him. Back in the late 1600s, Halley was trying to understand why the Earth's magnetic field acted so strange. He noticed that the magnetic poles, the places where compasses point, didn't always stay in the same spot. They moved around a little. To explain this, Halley came up with a wild idea. What if the Earth wasn't a solid ball, but had empty spaces inside it? He thought maybe the Earth was made of several layers, like shells stacked inside each other, with gaps in between. Each layer could spin a little differently, which might explain the weird magnetic stuff he was seeing. Now, Halley wasn't saying there were people living inside the Earth. His idea was more about how the planet was built. He thought there could be hollow spaces, or maybe even an inner sun to light things up. He didn't have proof, but he was a respected scientist, so people listened. His ideas got others thinking, and soon more people started playing with the idea of a hollow earth. It was a time when science was growing fast, but there were still so many mysteries. People didn't have the tools to look deep inside the earth, so a lot of what they believed came from guesses and imagination. Halley's idea was like a spark that lit up people's curiosity. As the years went by, other thinkers picked up on Halley's idea and ran with it. In the 1700s and 1800s, more people started writing about the hollow earth, not just as a scientific guess, but as a place where things could actually live. One guy, a writer named John Clave Sims, took it to a whole new level. Sims was an American who lived in the early 1800s, and he was absolutely convinced that the earth was hollow. He didn't just think it had a few empty spaces. He believed there was a whole world inside, with oceans, mountains, and maybe even people. Sims said there were giant holes at the North and South Poles that led to this inner world. He called them Sims holes, and he spent years trying to convince everyone he was right. Simmons wasn't a scientist like Halley. He was more of a dreamer, but he was passionate. He traveled around giving speeches, writing letters, and even asking the government to pay for an expedition to find these holes. He thought if people could get to the North Pole, they'd find a big opening that led to the inside of the earth. Most people thought he was a little crazy, but his ideas got attention. Newspapers wrote about him, and even though a lot of folks laughed, others started wondering if he might be onto something. Simmons didn't have much proof, but his enthusiasm made the hollow earth idea more popular than ever. Around the same time, stories about the hollow earth started showing up in books and novels. Writers love a good mystery, and the idea of a secret world inside the planet was perfect for adventure stories. One of the most famous books was by a French writer named Jules Verne. In 1864, he published Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's a story about a scientist and his nephew who find a secret passage in a volcano that leads deep underground. They discover a huge world with oceans, giant mushrooms, and even dinosaurs living inside the earth. The book was fiction, of course, but it made the idea of a hollow earth feel so real. People read it and started imagining what it would be like to find a place like that. Verne's book was a huge hit, and it's still one of the most famous stories about the hollow earth. Jules Verne wasn't the only one writing about this. Other writers jumped on the idea too. In the 1800s, there were tons of books and stories about hidden worlds. Some were serious, like they were trying to convince people the hollow earth was real. Others were just for fun, like adventure tales for kids. One example is a book called The Smoky God by Willis George Emerson, which came out in 1908. It's about a Norwegian sailor who claims he sailed through a hole at the North Pole and found a hidden world with giant people and a glowing sun inside the earth. The book was supposed to be a true story, but most people think it was made up. Still, it got people excited and kept the hollow earth idea alive. These stories weren't just random entertainment. They came at a time when people were exploring the world like never before. In the 1800s, explorers were racing to the North and South Poles, climbing mountains, and sailing to far-off places. The world was still full of blank spots on the map, places no one had ever been. So when someone like Sims or Verne talked about a hidden world inside the earth, it didn't seem totally impossible. If there were still undiscovered islands and jungles on the surface, why couldn't there be a whole world underground? People were ready to believe in big, wild ideas because the world felt full of possibilities. Religion played a role in these ideas too. Some people looked at their holy books and thought they saw hints of a hollow earth. For example, in the Bible, there are stories about places like Sheol or the depths of the earth. Some folks thought these could be talking about a real place inside the planet. In the 1800s, a few religious groups even mixed the hollow earth idea with their beliefs, saying it was a paradise or a place where lost tribes lived. These ideas weren't mainstream, but they added to the mix of stories and theories floating around. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, the hollow earth idea was everywhere. It wasn't just in books or religious pamphlets. It was part of popular culture. People were fascinated by the thought of a secret world. Scientists were starting to learn more about the earth, but they still didn't have all the answers. Things like earthquakes, volcanoes, and strange magnetic fields made people wonder what was really going on under the ground. The hollow earth theory was a way to fill in the gaps, to explain the things no one could quite figure out. As science got better, though, the hollow earth idea started to lose some of its shine. By the 1900s, scientists had new tools like seismographs that let them study earthquakes and figure out what the inside of the earth was like. They found out the earth has a solid crust, a thick mantle, and a hot, dense core. There wasn't room for giant hollow spaces or inner suns. But even as science proved the earth wasn't hollow, the idea didn't go away, it just changed. Instead of being a serious scientific theory, it became a story, a myth that people loved to tell and retell. The hollow earth idea also got a boost from strange real-world discoveries. People kept finding deep caves, underground rivers, and even weird creatures that lived far below the surface. These discoveries made it easy to imagine that something bigger could be down there. For example, in the 1800s and 1900s, explorers found huge cave systems, like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky or Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. These places were so big and mysterious that they fueled people's imaginations. If caves that big existed, who's to say there wasn't an even bigger world deeper down? Another thing that kept the hollow earth idea alive was the mystery of the poles. For a long time, no one had been to the North or South Pole. They were hard to reach, covered in ice, and full of secrets. People like Sims believed the poles were the key to finding the hollow earth. Even after explorers like Robert Peary and Roald Amundsen reached the poles in the early 1900s, the idea didn't die. Some people said the explorers missed the secret entrances or were part of a cover-up to hide the truth. It sounds far-fetched now, but back then, it was easier to believe in conspiracies like that. The hollow earth idea also got tangled up with other big mysteries. In the 1800s and 1900s, people were obsessed with lost civilizations, like Atlantis or Lemuria. Some thought these places didn't sink into the ocean, but moved underground instead. The idea of a lost tribe or an ancient society hiding inside the earth was thrilling. It made people think that history wasn't just what they saw on the surface. There could be whole chapters of the human story hidden below. As the 1900s went on, the hollow earth idea started to change again. It became less about science and more about adventure and mystery. It showed up in movies, comic books, and radio shows. People loved the idea of a secret world, even if they didn't really believe it was real. It was a way to escape, to imagine something bigger and stranger than everyday life. The hollow earth became a place where anything could happen, a place for heroes, monsters, or ancient secrets. One reason the hollow earth idea stuck around was that it tapped into something deep in people. We've always wanted to explore the unknown, whether it's outer space, the deep ocean, or the center of the earth. We love imagining what's out there. The hollow earth is like a blank canvas. It lets us dream up whatever we want. For some, it's a paradise where perfect societies live. For others, it's a scary place full of strange creatures. Either way, it's a story that lets us wonder about the world in a way that's fun and exciting. Even today, the hollow earth idea hasn't completely disappeared. You can find it in books, movies, and online forums. Some people still believe there's something hidden under the ground. Whether it's a lost civilization, secret government bases, or even aliens. The internet has made it easier for these ideas to spread, with websites and videos talking about secret tunnels or mysterious discoveries. Most scientists say it's not possible, but that doesn't stop people from dreaming. The hollow earth is one of those ideas that's just too good to let go of. Looking back, the hollow earth story is a mix of everything: myth, science, adventure, and imagination. It started with ancient people trying to understand the world. It grew with scientists like Halley, who asked big questions about the earth. It exploded with dreamers like Sims and writers like Verne, who made it a story everyone could love. And it's still around because it speaks to something in all of us. The desire to find something new, something hidden, something that makes the world a little more magical. The idea of a secret civilization inside the earth might not be true, but it's a story that's been told for centuries, and it's not done yet. The thought of a secret civilization thriving somewhere deep inside the earth is the kind of idea that grabs your imagination and doesn't let go. It's like something out of a science fiction movie, a hidden world with its own people, cities, and maybe even strange creatures all tucked away beneath our feet. But when you stop and think about it, you have to wonder, could something like that actually exist? Is there any chance the Earth has room for a whole civilization we've never found? To figure that out, we need to turn to science and look at what we know about our planet. We'll explore what's inside the Earth, why most scientists say a hollow planet isn't possible, and whether there's even a tiny possibility that a hidden society could be down there. Let's dive in, keep it simple, and see what the facts tell us about this wild idea. Let's start with the basics. What is the Earth made of? When you walk outside, the ground feels solid. You can dig a hole, plant a tree, or build a house, and it all seems pretty sturdy. But what's deeper down, beyond the dirt and rocks we can see? Scientists have spent centuries trying to answer that question, and they've come up with a clear picture of what's inside our planet. The Earth isn't just one big chunk of rock. It's made of layers, like an onion or a jawbreaker candy. Each layer has its own job, and they're all packed together tightly, with no big empty spaces. The top layer is called the crust. It's where we live, and it's the thinnest part of the Earth, kind of like the skin on an apple. Under the continents, the crust is about 20 to 40 miles thick. Under the oceans, it's even thinner, maybe 3 to 6 miles. That might sound like a lot, but compared to the whole Earth, which is about 8,000 miles across, the crust is just a tiny sliver. Below the crust is the mantle, a massive layer of hot, semi-solid rock that stretches down about 1,800 miles. The mantle isn't liquid, but it's hot enough to act like thick, slow-moving goo. If you've ever stirred molasses or honey, you get the idea. It flows, but not quickly. Deeper than the mantle is the core, which is split into two parts. The outer core is a layer of liquid metal, mostly iron and nickel, and it's super hot, like 7,000 to 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At the very center is the inner core, a solid ball of metal, so tightly squeezed by pressure that it stays solid even at temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, around 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This setup, crust, mantle, outer core, inner core, is what scientists have learned after years of study. It's not a guess, it's based on solid evidence. How do we know all this? One of the biggest clues comes from earthquakes. When an earthquake hits, it sends out waves of energy, like ripples when you drop a pebble in water. These waves travel through the Earth, and scientists use machines called seismographs to measure them. The waves move differently depending on what they're passing through: solid rock, liquid metal, or something else. By studying how fast the waves go and how they bend or bounce, scientists can figure out what's inside the Earth. It's like taking an X-ray of the planet. What they've found is that the Earth is dense and mostly solid, with no giant empty spaces. If the Earth was hollow, those waves would act completely differently, zipping through empty air or bouncing off open spaces. But the waves show a planet that's packed with rock and metal all the way to the core. Another clue is the Earth's weight. The Earth is incredibly heavy, about 6 sextillion tons, which is a 6 followed by 21 zeros. Scientists figure this out by looking at how the Earth pulls on things, like the moon, satellites, or even us when we stand on a scale. This pull, called gravity, depends on the Earth's mass. If the Earth had big hollow spaces inside, it wouldn't weigh as much. The numbers wouldn't add up. Gravity also gives us hints. If the Earth was hollow, gravity would feel weaker in some places or act strangely. But when scientists measure gravity all over the world, it matches what you'd expect from a solid planet with a dense core. So the idea of a giant hollow space just doesn't fit with what we know. There's more evidence too. The Earth's magnetic field, which makes compasses work, comes from the movement of liquid metal in the outer core. Scientists call this the dynamo effect, where the spinning of the Earth and the flow of molten metal create a magnetic field. If the Earth was hollow, there wouldn't be enough metal moving around to make this field. But we know the magnetic field is real. It protects us from harmful radiation from space and helps animals like birds navigate. All these clues, earthquake waves, gravity, and the magnetic field, point to the same thing. The Earth is a solid, layered planet, not a hollow shell. Now let's step back to the past, when the hollow earth idea was more popular. In the 1600s, a scientist named Edmond Halley, famous for Halley's Comet, suggested the earth might have hollow spaces. He wasn't thinking about a civilization, but he noticed the earth's magnetic field acted weird, with the magnetic poles moving slightly over time. To explain this, he proposed that the earth could have several layers, like shells inside each other, with gaps in between. Maybe these shells spun differently, causing the magnetic changes. Halley even suggested there might be an inner sun or glowing gas to light up the inside. It was a bold idea, but he didn't have the tools we have today, like seismographs or satellites. Back then, science was full of big guesses, because so much was still unknown. Halley's idea got people thinking, but as we learned more, it became clear the earth doesn't work that way. By the 1800s, when a guy named John Cleves Sims was shouting about giant holes at the North and South Poles, science was starting to catch up. Sims believed these holes led to a whole world inside the earth, with oceans and maybe people. He didn't have much evidence, but his passion made the idea famous. At the time, no one had been to the poles, so it was easier to imagine secret entrances. But as explorers reached the North and South Poles in the early 1900s, they found ice, rock, and ocean, not giant holes. Satellites and planes have since mapped the poles, and there's no sign of anything like Sims's holes. Still, back in the 1800s, the hollow earth idea wasn't crazy. It was just one of many theories trying to explain a mysterious world. So if the earth isn't hollow, could a secret civilization still exist somewhere underground? To answer that, we need to think about what a civilization needs to survive. First, they'd need a place to live. The crust is the only part of the earth that's cool enough and stable enough for life as we know it. The mantle and core are way too hot, thousands of degrees and under so much pressure that nothing could survive. Even in the crust, it gets hotter the deeper you go. For every 100 feet you go down, the temperature rises about 1 degree Fahrenheit. In deep mines like gold mines in South Africa that go down a couple of miles, it's so hot workers need special cooling systems. A civilization would need a big space like a giant cave or cavern to live in. But here's the problem. We've never found a cave big enough to hold a whole society. The biggest caves, like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky or Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, are massive, but they're still way too small for a city or even a small town. What about air? People or creatures need air to breathe. Caves often have air, but it's not always fresh. Deep underground, you'd need a way to keep air moving and clean. On the surface, we have wind and plants to refresh the air. Underground, you'd need something like fans, filters, or plants that don't need sunlight. That's a big challenge. Then there's food. A civilization needs to eat, whether it's plants, animals, or something else. Growing plants underground is tough because they need light. Maybe the civilization has artificial lights, like glowing crystals or advanced technology, but that's a lot of energy to produce. Another option is eating fungi, like mushrooms, which can grow without light. Scientists have found fungi and bacteria deep underground, but they're not enough to feed a whole civilization. Maybe they hunt underground creatures, but those are usually small, like worms or insects, not big enough to sustain a society. Water is another must-have. There are underground rivers and lakes, but they're often hard to reach or not clean enough to drink. A civilization would need a steady supply of fresh water, which is tricky to manage deep underground. They'd need to find natural springs or have machines to purify water. Energy is another hurdle. To run a society, you need power for lights, tools, or heat. On the surface, we use sunlight, wind, or fossil fuels. Underground, you might use geothermal energy, which comes from the Earth's heat, but that's hard to harness without advanced technology. Plus, all this activity, growing food, pumping air, purifying water, would give off heat, vibrations, or waste. Scientists have tools like seismic sensors and ground-penetrating radar that can detect these things, and so far, they haven't found signs of a hidden civilization. Let's think about biology. If people or creatures live deep underground, their bodies would need to be very different from ours. On the surface, we're built for sunlight, fresh air, and a certain range of temperatures. Underground, there's no light, so eyes might not work the same. Some cave animals, like fish or insects, have big eyes to see in dim light or no eyes at all, using sound or touch to get around. The air underground might be thin or full of strange gases, so their lungs would need to adapt. The pressure is higher the deeper you go, so their bodies would need to be tougher, maybe with stronger bones or skin. Scientists have found creatures that live in extreme places, like bacteria in rocks miles underground, or fish in dark ocean trenches. These creatures are tough, surviving with little food or oxygen. But they're simple, mostly microbes or small animals. A civilization needs beings smart enough to build tools, communicate, and create a society. So far, we haven't found anything like that underground. What about technology? If this civilization is advanced, they might have machines to solve these problems, lights for growing food, filters for air, or ways to recycle water. But that raises a big question. How did they get so advanced without us noticing? Building a civilization takes resources, metals, fuel, and tools. Mining and construction would leave traces, like heat, noise, or changes in the rock. Scientists use tools like radar and seismic sensors to look for underground structures, and nothing has pointed to a hidden city. If a civilization was down there, they'd have to be incredibly good at hiding. Maybe they have cloaking technology, like in science fiction, to block our senses. But even that would need energy, and energy use leaves clues, like heat or electromagnetic signals, that we could detect. Let's explore another possibility. What if the civilization lives in smaller underground spaces, not a giant hollow? There are natural caverns, lava tubes, and old mines all over the world. Some are big enough to hold hundreds or thousands of people. For example, in Cappadocia, Turkey, ancient people carved entire cities into soft rock, with homes, churches, and tunnels. These weren't secret. They were built for safety from invaders. Could a modern civilization do something similar, but stay hidden? It's possible, but it would be hard. They'd need to avoid detection by satellites, drones, or explorers. Even small signs, like heat from their machines or waste they produce, could give them away. Plus, a civilization needs space to grow, and even the biggest caves we know about are too small for a large society. Another idea is that the civilization isn't natural but artificial. Some stories say aliens or ancient humans built underground bases with super advanced technology. Think giant bunkers or cities carved into the rock, powered by something like fusion energy or glowing crystals. This sounds exciting, but there's no evidence for it. If aliens or super smart humans built something like that, they'd need materials and energy, and we'd likely see some trace, maybe weird magnetic fields or unexplained heat coming from the ground. Scientists have looked for these things, especially in places like Antarctica or deep oceans, and so far nothing points to a hidden civilization. Even secret military bases, which we know exist, leave clues like radio signals or supply shipments. A whole civilization would be much harder to hide. What about the poles? People like Simmons thought giant holes at the North and South poles led to the inner Earth. Today we know the poles are covered in ice and rock, just like the rest of the planet. Satellites have mapped them, and explorers have walked across them. There's no giant hole, just ice, ocean, and land. But the poles are still mysterious. They're remote and hard to study, so some people think secrets could be hidden there. Scientists have drilled deep into the ice in Antarctica and Greenland, looking for clues about the Earth's past, and they found nothing to suggest a hollow world or a hidden civilization. The ice cores show layers of snow and air bubbles, not entrances to an inner Earth. Still, the pole's inaccessibility keeps the mystery alive for some. Could a civilization be so deep we can't reach it? The deepest hole humans have drilled, the Kola super deep borehole in Russia, went down about 7.5 miles. That's deep, but it's still just a fraction of the crust, which can be 20 to 40 miles thick in places. If a civilization was deeper than that, our current technology couldn't find them. But even at that depth, the heat and pressure would make life nearly impossible without incredible adaptations or technology. And if they're that deep, how do they get resources like food or water? The logistics are mind-boggling. What if the civilization started long ago? Maybe during a catastrophe, like a flood or ice age. Maybe ancient humans or another species found a way to live in caves, and built a society over thousands of years. It's a cool idea, but it's hard to imagine them staying hidden. A growing civilization needs more resources, and that means mining, farming, or hunting, which would leave traces. Even small groups of people, like ancient cave dwellers, left behind tools, bones, and art. A whole civilization would leave bigger clues, and we haven't found any that suggest a hidden society. Could it be creatures instead of humans? Scientists have found life in extreme places, like bacteria in rocks miles underground, or shrimp-like creatures in ocean trenches. These organisms are tough, surviving with little food or oxygen, but they're simple. Microbes, worms, or small animals. A civilization needs beings with intelligence, able to build, communicate, and organize. We haven't found anything like that underground. The deepest life forms are basic, not the kind that could create a society. Let's consider one more angle. What if the civilization isn't physical, but something mystical, like the spiritual realm of Agartha in some myths? Some stories say Agartha isn't a real place, but a kind of energy-based or spiritual kingdom. Science can't study that. It's not something we can measure or test. If the civilization is more like a ghost or a dream, it's outside what we can prove or disprove. For this documentary, we're focusing on a physical civilization, so let's stick with the real-world possibilities. If a civilization is advanced, they might have ways to hide from us. Maybe they use technology to block our senses or live in a part of the Earth we can't reach, like under the ocean floor. But even advanced technology has limits. Any society produces heat, waste, or energy that we could detect. Scientists are always scanning for unusual signals, magnetic fields, heat signatures, or vibrations, and nothing has pointed to a hidden world. Even the most secret human projects, like underground bunkers, leave clues. A whole civilization would be much harder to conceal. What about uncharted places? The Earth has plenty of unexplored spots, deep caves, underground rivers, or remote ocean trenches. Could a small society be hiding in one of those? It's not impossible. There are caves we haven't fully mapped, and ocean depths we've barely touched. But even in those places, a civilization would need resources and space, and they'd likely leave some sign, heat, waste, or seismic activity. Our technology is getting better every day, with satellites, drones, and sensors that can detect tiny changes in the Earth. A hidden civilization would need to be incredibly careful to avoid notice. Let's think about scale. A civilization doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's a small group like a tribe or colony. A few hundred people could live in a large cave system, using advanced technology or natural resources to survive. But even a small group would face the same problems: air, food, water, and energy. And they'd still need to stay hidden from explorers, scientists, or random cavers who might stumble across them. The more we explore, the harder it is to imagine a group staying secret for long. Another thought: what if the civilization isn't on Earth but inside another planet or moon? Scientists think Mars might have underground caves, and Jupiter's moon Europa could have a liquid ocean beneath its ice. If we're dreaming big, maybe a secret civilization exists out there, not here. But that's a different story, and for now, we're focused on Earth. Here, the evidence says a hollow planet with a giant inner world isn't possible. The crust might have caves or tunnels, but a full-blown civilization with cities and technology is a long shot. So, what's the verdict? Science tells us the Earth is a solid, layered planet with no room for a giant hollow space or an inner sun. The crust could have caves big enough for small groups, but a large civilization would face huge challenges: food, air, water, and staying hidden. We've explored enough of the Earth to know that a massive secret society is unlikely. Our tools, seismographs, radar, satellites would likely pick up some sign of them. But the Earth is a big place, and we haven't seen it all. The deepest we've drilled is a few miles, and the planet is thousands of miles thick. There's still room for mystery, even if it's a slim chance. The hollow Earth idea captures our imagination. Because it's about the unknown, it makes us wonder what's out there in the places we can't see. Science says no to a giant inner world, but it doesn't rule out every possibility. Maybe a small, clever group is hiding in an unexplored cave. Maybe they've found a way to survive that we can't even imagine. Or maybe the truth is stranger than we think. For now, the hollow earth remains a dream. A fascinating idea that science challenges but doesn't completely erase. It's a reminder that our planet still holds secrets, and that's what keeps us curious. The idea of a secret civilization hidden deep inside the earth is one of those stories that grabs you by the imagination and holds on tight. It's the kind of thing that makes you stop and wonder, could there really be a whole world down there, with people, creatures, or something even stranger, living in a place we've never seen? We've already explored where this idea came from, with ancient myths and early scientific guesses, and we've looked at what science says about whether it's even possible. Now, let's dive into the stories that have kept this idea alive for centuries. Tales from long ago, and the wild modern theories that keep popping up today. We'll travel through ancient legends from every corner of the world, stories that paint pictures of hidden underground kingdoms, and then we'll see how those ideas have transformed into today's conspiracy theories about secret bases, lost civilizations, or even aliens hiding beneath the surface. These stories, old and new, show why the idea of a secret world inside the earth is so powerful, and why people keep believing in it, even when science pushes back. Let's get started and see where these tales take us. Long before anyone had telescopes, satellites, or drilling machines, people looked at the ground beneath their feet and wondered what was down there. Caves, dark tunnels, and mysterious springs were like doorways to the unknown. They were spooky, exciting places that seemed to lead somewhere beyond the everyday world. Without modern science to explain what was underground, people did what humans have always done. They told stories. These weren't just bedtime tales. They were ways to make sense of a world full of mysteries. Why did earthquakes rumble? Why did hot water bubble up from springs? What was inside those deep, dark caves? Every culture had its own answers, and many of those answers involved hidden worlds underground, places that might hold gods, spirits, or even entire societies. Let's start with ancient Greece, where one of the most famous underground stories was born, the Underworld. The Greeks believed that when people died, their souls went to a shadowy kingdom deep beneath the earth, ruled by the god Hades. This wasn't just a vague, empty place. It was a whole world, with rivers, fields, and even palaces. There was the river Styx, where souls were ferried across, and Elysium, a paradise for heroes. The underworld had its own rules and geography, almost like a mirror of the world above. Greek myths told of living people, like the hero Orpheus, who traveled to the underworld through secret entrances, like caves or cracks in the ground, to rescue loved ones. Another hero, Hercules, went there to capture a monstrous dog. These stories made the earth feel like a place with hidden depths, where a whole other world could exist just out of sight. The underworld wasn't a civilization of living people, but it planted a seed, the idea that there could be a vast, organized realm beneath us. Across the world, other cultures had their own versions of this idea. In ancient India, Hindu mythology spoke of Patala, one of 7 underground realms. Patala wasn't a gloomy place like the Greek underworld. It was described as a dazzling world, deeper than any cave, filled with glittering treasures, strange creatures, and beings called Nagas. The Nagas were half human, half snake, and they were said to be wise and powerful, guarding secrets and riches. Patala had cities, rivers, and even its own skies, making it sound like a thriving civilization hidden below the surface. In some stories, it was a place of beauty and wonder, more advanced than the world above. These tales weren't just about fantasy. They made people think that the earth could hold entire kingdoms we couldn't see, places where life worked differently. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a legend about Shambhala, a hidden kingdom that some say is deep inside the earth or tucked away in the mountains. Shambhala is described as a perfect place where people live in peace, free from suffering, and possess incredible knowledge, maybe secrets about the universe or technology we can't imagine. Some stories say it's a physical place, hidden in the Himalayas, or even underground, with secret entrances guarded by mystical beings. Others say it's more spiritual, a realm you can only reach through enlightenment. Either way, Shambhala captured people's imaginations because it suggested a hidden world that was better than ours, a place where humans could live in harmony with incredible wisdom. The idea that such a place could be underground made the earth seem full of possibilities. Other cultures had their own underground tales. In Norse mythology, there was Svartalfheim, a dark underground world where dwarves or dark elves lived. These beings were master craftsmen, forging magical weapons and treasures. The Norse imagined Svartalfheim as a busy, creative place, hidden beneath the Earth's surface. In Native American traditions, like those of the Hopi people, there are stories about underground worlds where their ancestors lived before emerging to the surface. The Hopi believe in a place called Sipapu, a sacred opening in the earth that connects to these hidden realms. Some versions of the story say their people lived underground to escape disasters, like floods, before being guided to the surface. In Celtic folklore, there are tales of fairy folk living in hollow hills, underground realms full of magic and mystery. These stories vary, but they all share a common idea. The earth is more than it seems, with secret places where strange and wonderful things happen. These ancient legends came from real observations. People saw caves that seemed to go on forever, felt earthquakes that shook the ground, or heard strange noises from deep below. A bubbling hot spring or a volcano spitting lava could feel like a sign of life underground. Without seismographs or drills, it was easy to imagine gods, spirits, or even people living down there. Caves were especially mysterious. If you've ever stood at the mouth of a dark cave, you know it feels like it could lead anywhere. Ancient people took these mysteries and wove them into stories that explained the world. These tales were passed down through generations, shaping how people saw the earth, not just as a solid rock, but as a place full of hidden wonders. As time went on, these myths got mixed with new ideas. By the 1600s and 1700s, explorers were finding huge cave systems and underground rivers, which made the old stories seem more possible. Scientists started asking questions about the Earth's insides, like Edmond Halley, who suggested the planet might have hollow spaces to explain its magnetic field. In the 1800s, dreamers like John Cleves Sims took it further, claiming there were giant holes at the poles leading to an inner world. These ideas blended ancient myths with early science, giving the hollow earth concept a new life. Writers like Jules Verne jumped in with books like Journey to the Center of the Earth, which painted vivid pictures of underground oceans, forests, and dinosaurs. Verne's story was fiction, but it felt so real that it made people wonder if there could be truth to it. Other books, like The Smoky God, told wild tales of sailors finding a hidden world inside the earth, complete with giant people and a glowing sun. These stories kept the idea alive, mixing old legends with new adventures. Now let's jump to today, where ancient myths have turned into something else: modern conspiracy theories. Science has shown us the earth is solid, with layers of rock and metal, but that hasn't stopped people from believing in secret civilizations. Instead of gods or nagas, today's stories talk about secret government bases, alien hideouts, or lost civilizations hiding underground. These modern tales are like the ancient myths, but they use the language of today: science, technology, and secrecy. They're fueled by the same human need to explain the unknown, but now they're spread through the internet, where a single story can reach millions in a day. One of the biggest modern theories is about secret underground bases. Some people believe governments or shadowy groups have built massive complexes deep in the earth, maybe for experiments, hiding secrets, or preparing for disasters. Places like Area 51 in Nevada get mentioned a lot. Area 51 is a real military base, but conspiracy theorists say it has underground levels where aliens or advanced technology are studied. There's no proof, just stories from people who claim to have worked there or seen something strange. Another example is the Denver International Airport. It's a real airport with huge underground tunnels, officially used for utilities and baggage systems. But some say those tunnels hide a secret city or bunker for the world's elite, maybe to survive an apocalypse. The evidence? Unusual artwork at the airport, and rumors about its construction. Scientists and officials say it's just an airport, but the idea of a hidden base is too exciting to let go. Then there's the alien angle. Some believe extraterrestrials have secret bases underground, maybe in remote places like Antarctica, under mountains, or beneath the ocean. These stories often start with sightings, strange lights in the sky, weird noises from the ground, or encounters with mysterious beings. Some claim aliens have been here for thousands of years, building underground cities to stay hidden. Others say they work with governments in secret bases, trading technology for a place to hide. There's no clear evidence, no photos, no artifacts, but the stories keep going because they're thrilling. They make the world feel bigger, like there's a cosmic secret just out of reach. Another popular theory is about lost civilizations. Some say ancient societies like Atlantis or Lemuria didn't vanish, they moved underground. These stories claim groups like the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, or even biblical tribes had advanced technology and hid in secret caverns to escape floods, wars, or other disasters. Some point to real underground structures like tunnels under the pyramids in Egypt or ancient galleries in Peru as proof. Archaeologists say these were usually for storage, ceremonies, or shelter, but conspiracy theorists see them as clues to a hidden world. The idea that an ancient civilization could still be alive, hiding below us, is exciting because it suggests history has secrets we haven't uncovered. Why do these conspiracy theories stick around? They're like modern myths, filling in the gaps where science doesn't have all the answers. The Earth is a big place, and we haven't explored every inch. Deep caves, ocean trenches, and remote places like Antarctica are hard to reach, so it's easy to imagine secrets there. Plus, people don't always trust governments or scientists. If a scientist says the Earth is solid, some think they're hiding the truth. Leaked documents, blurry photos, or whistleblower stories add fuel to the fire, even if they're vague or unproven. The internet makes it worse. Videos, blogs, and forums spread these ideas like wildfire, with stories that seem convincing until you look closer. Let's look at some specific examples that feed these theories. Antarctica is a big one. It's cold, remote, and hard to study, which makes it perfect for conspiracies. Scientists have found lakes under the ice, like Lake Vostok, sealed off for millions of years. These lakes have strange microbes, which makes people wonder what else could be down there. Some say Antarctica hides alien bases or entrances to a hollow Earth. They point to old maps, like the Piri Reis map from the 1500s, which some claim shows Antarctica without ice, hinting at ancient knowledge. Scientists say the map is misinterpreted and the lakes are natural, but Antarctica's mystery keeps the theories alive. Another example is secret tunnels. Around the world, people have found underground passages, some ancient, some modern. In Egypt, there are tunnels under the Giza Plateau, likely for ceremonies or storage. In South America, the Chavin culture built underground galleries thousands of years ago. Modern tunnels, like those under cities or military bases, add to the mystery. Conspiracy theorists say these are part of a global network, maybe connected to a hollow Earth. Archaeologists say most tunnels have practical explanations, like water systems or hiding from enemies, but every new discovery sparks new theories. Strange phenomena also fuel these stories. People report weird things like loud booms from the ground or unexplained lights in remote areas. In the 2010s, places like Wisconsin and New Jersey had reports of mysterious boom sounds with no clear cause. Scientists suggested natural explanations, like shallow quakes or frostquakes, but some said it was secret tunneling or alien machines. Unexplained lights, like those seen near Mount Shasta in California, get tied to stories of hidden civilizations or UFOs. Scientists often explain these as natural, like gas releases or atmospheric effects. But when answers aren't clear, conspiracy theories fill the gap. These modern stories build on ancient myths. Take Agartha, the hidden kingdom from Tibetan and Hindu legends. Some say it's a real city under the Himalayas or Antarctica, home to advanced beings. Others tie it to wild stories, like Nazis searching for Agartha during World War II, hoping to find ancient technology. There's no evidence the Nazis found anything, but the idea mixes old myths with modern fears of secret power. Mount Shasta is another hotspot. Local legends call it a spiritual place, maybe an entrance to a hidden world. Some say it's connected to Lemuria, or that aliens live inside. People report strange lights or encounters with mysterious beings there. Scientists say the lights could be natural, but the mountain's mystique keeps the stories alive. Another theory is about the Dulce base in New Mexico, where some claim there's an underground facility for alien-human experiments. The evidence is mostly stories from alleged insiders, with no hard proof, but the idea of a secret base in a remote desert is compelling. These stories often borrow from ancient myths, like the idea of a hidden kingdom, but they add modern twists, aliens, government cover-ups, or advanced technology. Why are these stories so powerful? First, they tap into our sense of wonder. The Earth is huge, and we've only explored a tiny bit. The deepest we've drilled is 7.5 miles, a speck compared to the Earth's 8,000-mile diameter. There are caves, ocean trenches, and underground rivers we haven't mapped. When we hear about a new cave or a lake under Antarctica, it's easy to imagine something more like a hidden city. Second, these stories play on distrust. Ancient people didn't trust the gods to reveal everything, so they imagined hidden worlds. Today, some don't trust governments or scientists, thinking they're hiding secrets. Third, these stories are about hope and fear. Hope, because a hidden civilization could be a paradise with answers to big questions. Fear, because a secret society or alien base could be a threat. These emotions make the story stick. The internet has made these stories bigger. A blurry video or a leaked document can go viral, convincing thousands that something's hidden underground. Forums, podcasts, and YouTube channels are full of people sharing theories about secret bases or lost civilizations. Even if the evidence is thin, the stories are exciting because they make the world feel bigger and stranger. So what's the truth? Science says the Earth is solid, with no room for a giant hollow world. Caves and tunnels exist, but they're small and explained by natural or human causes. Strange phenomena usually have scientific explanations, even if we don't always find them right away. But the lack of answers keeps the stories alive. Every new discovery or unexplained event sparks new theories. The Earth is still full of mysteries, and as long as there are questions, there will be stories, ancient legends and modern conspiracies about secret worlds beneath our feet. These tales, old and new, show how humans think, dream, and wonder about the unknown, keeping the idea of a hidden civilization alive, no matter what science says. Let's imagine for a moment that a secret civilization really does exist deep inside the Earth. It's a wild idea, one that science says is unlikely, but it's exciting to think about. What would life be like for people or creatures living in a hidden world beneath our feet? How would they survive in a place without sunlight, with limited space, and under conditions so different from the surface? In this chapter, we're going to dream up what this secret civilization might look like, how they live, what they eat, how their society works, and what kind of technology or biology they'd need to thrive. We'll keep it grounded in what we know about science, but we'll let our imaginations run a little to paint a picture of a world that's both strange and fascinating. Let's dive into this hidden realm and explore what life could be like down there. First, let's think about where this civilization would live. The Earth's surface is where we're used to living, with open skies, sunlight, and plenty of space. But underground, things are different. The only place that's even remotely livable is the Earth's crust, the thin outer layer that's about 20 to 40 miles thick under continents and 3 to 6 miles thick under oceans. Deeper down in the mantle or core, it's way too hot, thousands of degrees Fahrenheit, and the pressure is so intense it would crush anything alive. So our secret civilization would need to be in the crust, probably in a large cave system, a network of tunnels, or maybe an artificial space they carved out themselves. Caves like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky or Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico are huge, stretching for miles, but they're still tiny compared to what a civilization would need. A whole society, with thousands or millions of people, would require a massive space. Think of an underground city the size of New York or Tokyo, with room for homes, farms, and gathering places. It's hard to imagine a natural cave that big, so maybe they built their own space, using advanced technology to hollow out giant caverns or reinforce tunnels so they don't collapse. What would this place look like? Without sunlight, it would be dark, pitch black, unless they had a way to make light. Maybe they have a glowing source, like bioluminescent plants or animals, the way some deep-sea creatures glow. Or perhaps they've invented artificial lights, powered by something like geothermal energy from the Earth's heat. Picture a vast cavern, its ceiling so high it's lost in shadows, with glowing orbs or crystals hanging like stars, casting a soft light over a city of strange buildings carved from rock. The air might be thick and humid, like a jungle, or cool and still, like a deep cave. There could be underground rivers or lakes, their surfaces reflecting the artificial lights, winding through the city like glowing ribbons. The walls might be covered in strange plants or fungi, adapted to grow without sunlight, adding splashes of color to the stone. It's a world that feels alien, yet somehow alive, with its own rhythms and beauty. Now let's talk about the basics of survival. Air. On the surface, we breathe air that's constantly refreshed by plants and wind. Underground, air is a bigger challenge. Caves often have air, but it can be stale or low in oxygen. Our civilization would need a way to keep the air fresh and breathable. Maybe they have plants that produce oxygen, like algae or fungi adapted to the dark. Some real-world caves have algae that grow in dim light, so it's not impossible. Or maybe they use machines, giant filters or fans that pull in air from the surface through tiny cracks or vents. These machines would need to be incredibly efficient to keep a whole city breathing. If the civilization is advanced, they might even recycle air, like on a spaceship, scrubbing out carbon dioxide and adding oxygen. Without a steady supply of air, no society could survive, so this would be one of their biggest priorities. Next up is food. On the surface, we grow crops in sunlight, raise animals or fish in rivers. Underground, sunlight isn't an option, so they'd need a different way to eat. One possibility is fungi, like mushrooms, which can grow without light. Scientists have found fungi in caves that thrive in the dark, feeding on minerals or organic matter. Our civilization could have vast mushroom farms, with fields of glowing fungi in every color, white, red, or even blue. These fungi might be their main food, like bread or rice is for us, providing calories and nutrients. But a whole civilization probably needs more variety. Maybe they've bred underground animals, like blind fish or insects, that are adapted to the dark. In real caves, we've found creatures like cave crickets or eyeless shrimp that survive on scraps of organic matter. The civilization could raise these creatures like we raise chickens or cows, creating a kind of underground ranch. Another food option is hydroponics, growing plants in water with artificial lights. If they have a power source, like geothermal energy or some kind of advanced reactor, they could grow crops like algae, which is packed with nutrients and grows fast. Algae farms could line the cavern walls, glowing under artificial lights, producing food for thousands. Or maybe they've mastered synthetic food, like scientists on the surface are starting to do, creating protein or carbohydrates in labs. This would take incredible technology, but if they're advanced enough to live underground, it's possible. The key is that they'd need a lot of food to feed a population, and growing or raising it in the dark would be a huge challenge. Water is another must-have. Underground, there are rivers, lakes and aquifers, natural reservoirs of water trapped in rock. The civilization could tap into these, using pumps or channels to bring water to their city. But the water might not always be clean, full of minerals or bacteria from deep underground. They'd need filters or purifiers to make it drinkable. In some caves, water drips from stalactites or flows in crystal clear streams, so maybe their city is built around a sparkling underground lake, with pipes carrying water to every home. If they're advanced, they might recycle water like on a space station, cleaning and reusing every drop. Without a steady water supply, no civilization could last, so they'd have to be experts at managing it. Energy is the next big piece. On the surface, we use sunlight, wind, or fossil fuels to power our lives. Underground, those aren't options, so they'd need something else. Geothermal energy is a good bet. The Earth's crust gets hotter the deeper you go, and they could tap into that heat to generate power. Real-world geothermal plants use steam from hot rocks to make electricity. So the civilization might have pipes and turbines pulling energy from the earth itself. Picture a city powered by glowing red pipes, humming with the heat of the planet's core. Another possibility is a nuclear reactor, but that would need advanced technology and rare materials like uranium. Or maybe they've discovered something we haven't, like crystals that store energy, or a way to harness magnetic fields. Whatever they use, they'd need a lot of power to light their city, run machines, and grow food. What about the people or creatures themselves? If they're human-like, they'd need to be adapted to life underground. On the surface, our bodies are built for sunlight, fresh air, and moderate temperatures. Underground, it's dark, the air might be thin, and the pressure is higher the deeper you go. Their eyes might be different, maybe huge, like a cave fish, to catch every bit of light. Or maybe they don't use eyes at all, relying on sound, touch, or even echolocation like bats. Their skin could be pale from no sunlight, or tough to handle the pressure and rough rock. Their lungs might be bigger or more efficient to deal with low oxygen or strange gases. In real caves, we found creatures like blind salamanders or insects that thrive in the dark, so it's not impossible. But a whole civilization of complex beings would need more than just physical changes. They'd need intelligence to build and maintain their world. If they're not human, what could they be? Maybe they're descendants of ancient creatures, like reptiles or insects, that evolved underground after a catastrophe, like a meteor or ice age. Or perhaps they're something totally alien, with bodies we can't even imagine, like beings made of energy or liquid. In science fiction, writers dream up creatures that don't need air or food like we do. But in reality, life needs some kind of energy to survive. Even strange creatures would need adaptations to handle the dark heat and pressure of the underground. They might move differently, maybe slithering or crawling through tight tunnels, or have senses we don't, like feeling vibrations in the rock. Now let's think about their society. How do they live together? A civilization isn't just a bunch of people or creatures, it's a system with rules, jobs, and culture. On the surface, our societies are shaped by things like weather, trade, or war. Underground, their society would be shaped by their environment. Space would be a big issue. Even a huge cavern is smaller than a surface city, so they'd need to use every inch wisely. Maybe their homes are carved into the rock, stacked like apartments in a cliff face, with tunnels connecting everything. Their cities might be compact, with no sprawling suburbs, just tight-knit neighborhoods built around water sources or power plants. Their government could be different from ours. On the surface, we have democracies, monarchies, or other systems, often spread across wide areas. Underground, with limited space, they might have a single leader or council to keep things organized, or maybe they're more like a hive, with everyone working together like ants or bees, sharing tasks to survive. Resources like food, water, and energy would be precious, so their society might be strict about sharing or rationing. Imagine a city where every drop of water is counted, and wasting food is a serious crime. Their laws might focus on keeping the group alive, with rules about not damaging the cavern walls or polluting the air. What about their culture? On the surface, our art, music, and stories are inspired by the sky, the seasons, or the ocean. Underground, their culture would reflect their world. Their art might be carved into rock, showing glowing fungi or underground rivers. Their music could use echoes, with drums or voices bouncing off cavern walls to create haunting sounds. Their stories might be about the surface, a mythical place they've never seen, or about the dangers of the deep, like cave-ins or monsters in the dark. Religion could be a big part of their lives, maybe worshipping the earth itself as a living thing that protects them, or they might revere the glowing lights that keep their world bright, seeing them as gods or spirits. Technology would be key to their survival. To live underground, they'd need tools and machines far beyond what ancient cave dwellers had. Think of advanced drills to carve tunnels, filters to clean air and water, or lights to grow food. If they're really advanced, they might have things we can only dream of, like machines that recycle every scrap of waste, or generators that pull energy from the Earth's magnetic field. Their technology might not look like ours. Instead of metal and plastic, they could use crystals, fungi, or other materials that grow underground. Imagine a city where buildings are grown, not built, with walls made of living fungi that repair themselves. Their tools might be small and precise, designed for tight spaces, or powered by heat and pressure instead of electricity. Communication would be another challenge. On the surface, we use phones, radios, or the internet to talk across distances. Underground, radio waves don't travel well through rock, so they'd need other ways to communicate. Maybe they use sound, sending messages through vibrations in the stone, like tapping Morse code. Or they could have wires or tubes running through the city, carrying messages, or even small objects. If they're super advanced, they might use something like telepathy or bioengineered signals, where their bodies send messages directly. Their language might be different too, with words or sounds designed to carry through tunnels or echo in caverns. What about their history? How did they end up underground? One possibility is that they're descendants of surface people who fled a disaster, like a flood, ice age, or war. Maybe they were an ancient civilization, like the Atlanteans in myths, who built an underground city to escape. Over thousands of years, they adapted to their new home, changing physically and culturally. Or maybe they're not human at all, but a separate species that evolved underground, like how some animals evolved in caves. Their history could be full of struggles, fighting to survive in a harsh world, learning to use the Earth's resources, or hiding from the surface. They might have stories of a great descent, when their ancestors first went underground, or myths about a lost surface world they can never return to. Would they know about us? If they're close to the surface, maybe they've seen signs of our world, vibrations from our cities, heat from our minds, or even explorers stumbling into their tunnels. If they're advanced, they might have spies or machines that watch us, keeping their existence secret. Or maybe they're so deep underground that they don't even know we exist, living in a world completely separate from ours. If they do know about us, they'd probably want to stay hidden. A civilization that survived underground for centuries would be good at secrecy, using technology or natural barriers to keep us out. They might block tunnels, cloak their energy, or even disguise their entrances as ordinary caves. Let's think about their daily lives. What do they do all day? Some might work in food farms, tending glowing fungi, or harvesting algae. Others could be engineers, fixing air filters or power systems. There might be teachers passing down knowledge, or artists carving stories into the rock. Their days would be shaped by their environment. No sunrise or sunset, so maybe they use artificial clocks or cycles of light to mark time. Their lives might feel cramped, with no wide open spaces, but they could have a deep sense of community, relying on each other to survive. Imagine a family sitting around a glowing table, eating mushroom stew, telling stories of the deep earth while the hum of machines fills the background. What about challenges they face? The underground is a tough place. Cave-ins could be a constant threat, with rocks falling and blocking tunnels. They'd need strong engineering to keep their city stable, maybe using flexible materials that bend instead of break. Air quality could be a problem. Dust, gases, or low oxygen might make people sick. They'd need doctors or healers who understand underground diseases, maybe caused by strange bacteria or minerals. Food shortages could happen if a crop fails or an animal herd dies. And if they're hiding from us, they'd need to be on guard, maybe with sensors or guards watching for intruders. Every day would be a balancing act, keeping their world running smoothly in a place that's naturally hostile. Could they be happy? On the surface, we find joy in things like sunsets, forests, or starry nights. Underground, their joys would be different. Maybe they love the glow of their lights, the sound of water dripping in a quiet cave, or the feeling of being part of a tight-knit society. Their festivals might celebrate the earth, with dances under glowing crystals, or songs that echo through tunnels. They might find beauty in the strange shapes of stalactites, or the patterns of fungi on the walls. Happiness is about connection and meaning, and they could have that in their own way, even in a world so different from ours. Let's consider what they might look like. If they're human descendants, they could resemble us, but with changes from living underground. Pale skin, large eyes, or no eyes at all, like some cave animals. Their bodies might be smaller to fit tight spaces, or stronger to handle the pressure. If they're not human, they could be anything. Creatures with glowing skin, insect-like limbs for climbing, or fluid forms that flow through cracks. Their appearance would depend on their environment and history, shaped by thousands of years underground. Imagine meeting one, a tall, pale figure with huge reflective eyes, moving silently through a glowing tunnel, their voice echoing in a language you don't understand. What about their technology level? They could be primitive, using simple tools like our ancient ancestors, scraping by with fungi and water. But to sustain a civilization, they'd likely need advanced technology machines to grow food, purify air, and generate power. Maybe they're more advanced than us, with knowledge we've lost or never discovered. They could have bioengineered plants that glow and produce oxygen, or robots that maintain their city. Their science might focus on the Earth itself, understanding rocks, heat, and pressure in ways we don't. Or maybe they use a mix of old and new, stone tools alongside glowing machines, blending ancient wisdom with futuristic tech. How do they deal with waste? On the surface, we struggle with trash and pollution. Underground, waste would be an even bigger problem. They'd need to recycle everything: food scraps, water, even air. Maybe they have machines that break down waste into nutrients for their farms, or bacteria that eat garbage and turn it into energy. Their city might be a closed system, like a spaceship, where nothing is wasted. This would take incredible ingenuity, but it's possible if they've had centuries to perfect it. What about their connection to the surface? If they know about us, they might see us as a threat or a curiosity. Maybe they send scouts to watch our world, sneaking through caves or using tiny drones. Or maybe they're completely isolated, with no idea the surface exists. If they're hiding, they'd need to be masters of stealth, blocking our sensors or disguising their entrances. Real-world caves often have hidden passages, so it's not impossible. They might use natural barriers, like underground rivers or rockfalls, to keep us out. Or maybe they've hacked our technology, making sure our satellites and radars miss their signals. Could they interact with us? If they're advanced, they might trade with us in secret, exchanging underground minerals for surface goods. Or maybe they avoid us completely, fearing we'd invade or destroy their world. If they're less advanced, they might not even know how to reach us, living in a sealed-off cavern. Their view of the surface could be mythical, like how we see outer space, a distant, dangerous place full of wonders. Let's imagine a day in their city. The lights dim to signal night, and the hum of machines softens. Families gather in rock-carved homes, eating meals of fungi and algae. Children play in glowing tunnels, chasing bioluminescent insects. Workers check the air filters, making sure the city breathes. Leaders meet to plan the next harvest or repair a tunnel damaged by a quake. Somewhere, an artist carves a story into the stone, while a musician plays a haunting tune that echoes through the cavern. It's a life shaped by the earth, full of challenges but also beauty and purpose. In the end, this secret civilization would be a marvel of adaptation. Whether human, creature, or something else, they'd need to solve problems we can barely imagine: living without sunlight, managing scarce resources, and staying hidden. Their world would be strange, with glowing cities, fungal farms, and echoing tunnels, but it could be vibrant and alive in its own way. Science says a civilization like this is unlikely, but imagining it shows us how creative life can be, finding ways to thrive in the toughest places. It's a reminder that the earth is full of possibilities, even in its deepest, darkest corners. The idea of a secret civilization living inside the earth is one of those mysteries that keeps us up at night, wondering if there's a hidden world just beneath our feet. We've explored the ancient myths and early scientific guesses that gave birth to this idea, checked what modern science says about the possibility, and imagined what life might be like for such a civilization. But now it's time to ask the big question: is there any proof? Have we ever found evidence of a hidden society underground, or are we just chasing shadows? In this chapter, we'll dive into the real-world efforts to uncover signs of a secret civilization through cave explorations, scientific studies, and cutting-edge technology. We'll look at why no solid evidence has been found, what limits our ability to search, and what future discoveries might reveal. Let's embark on this journey to see if the truth is out there, or rather, down there. When you think about finding a hidden civilization, the first place that comes to mind is caves. Caves are the Earth's natural doorways to the underground, and humans have been exploring them for thousands of years. From ancient people painting on cave walls, to modern adventurers mapping uncharted tunnels, caves have always felt like gateways to another world. Some of the biggest cave systems like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky or the Sun Dune Cave in Vietnam are massive miles of twisting passages, underground rivers and chambers, big enough to hold entire buildings. If a secret civilization exists, you'd think caves would be the place to find them. Explorers, called cavers, have spent lifetimes crawling through these dark, rocky mazes, looking for clues about the Earth's past, and maybe something more. So what have we found in caves? A lot, but not a hidden civilization. Caves are full of wonders, stalactites and stalagmites that look like natural sculptures, underground lakes that glow with eerie light, and creatures like blind fish or bats that have adapted to the dark. Archaeologists have found ancient human artifacts in caves, like tools, bones, and paintings from tens of thousands of years ago. In places like Lascaux, France, or Altamira, Spain, cave walls are covered with drawings of animals and hunters, showing that early humans used caves for shelter or ceremonies. In Cappadocia, Turkey, people carved entire cities into soft rock, with homes, churches, and tunnels to hide from invaders. These discoveries are incredible, but they're not evidence of a secret civilization. They show humans living underground temporarily, not a thriving hidden society cut off from the world. What about deeper caves? Could a civilization be hiding in places we haven't reached? The deepest known cave, the Krubera Cave in Georgia, the country, not the US state, goes down about 1.4 miles. That's deep, but it's still just a fraction of the Earth's crust, which can be 20 to 40 miles thick. Exploring these caves is tough. Cavers face tight squeezes, freezing water, and the risk of getting lost or trapped. Even in the deepest caves, we've found no signs of a society. No buildings, no machines, no traces of people living there now. We've found fossils of ancient creatures, like prehistoric fish or insects, and bacteria that survive in extreme conditions, but nothing that suggests a complex civilization. Caves are harsh places, dark, low on oxygen, and short on food, so it's hard to imagine a whole society thriving there without leaving obvious clues. Let's think about how we'd find a civilization if it's deeper than caves. Scientists have tools to look underground without actually going there. One of the most important is seismology, the study of earthquake waves. When an earthquake happens, it sends waves through the earth, like ripples in a pond. These waves move differently through solid rock, liquid metal, or empty spaces. Scientists use machines called seismographs to measure these waves, building a picture of what's inside the earth. This is how we know the planet has a solid crust, a semi-solid mantle, and a core of liquid and solid metal. If there was a giant hollow space big enough for a civilization, the waves would act differently, bouncing or speeding up through empty areas. But decades of seismic data show no such spaces, just layers of rock and metal packed tightly together. Seismic studies aren't perfect though. They give us a big picture view of the Earth's insides, but they're not great at spotting small details, like a single cavern or tunnel. A small underground city, maybe a mile wide, might not show up on a seismic map because the waves are too broad to catch it. Scientists are getting better at focusing these techniques, using them to find things like oil deposits or fault lines. But so far, nothing points to a hidden civilization. If a society is hiding in a small, isolated cavern, seismology might miss it, but they'd still need to be incredibly good at staying hidden. Another tool is ground-penetrating radar, which sends radio waves into the ground and measures how they bounce back. It's like sonar for the Earth, used to find buried ruins, pipes, or caves. Archaeologists use it to discover ancient cities without digging, like finding lost temples in Egypt or Central America. But radar only works for shallow depths, usually less than 100 feet. Deeper than that, the waves get scattered by rock and soil, making it hard to see anything clearly. If a civilization is deep underground, say a mile or more, radar wouldn't reach them. Scientists are working on better versions, like using low-frequency waves, but we're not there yet. Drilling is another way to explore the Earth. The deepest hole ever drilled, the Kola super-deep borehole in Russia, went down about 7.5 miles. That's incredible, but it's still just a tiny scratch in the crust. Drilling that deep is slow, expensive, and dangerous. Equipment breaks, and the heat and pressure make it nearly impossible to go deeper. When scientists drilled the Kola borehole, they found hot rocks, water trapped in tiny cracks, and microscopic fossils, but no signs of a civilization. The deeper you go, the hotter it gets. About 1 degree Fahrenheit for every 100 feet, so any civilization would need to handle extreme conditions. The Kola project stopped in the 1990s because it was too hard to keep going, and no one's gone deeper since. What about the oceans? A lot of the Earth's crust is underwater, and the ocean floor is one of the least explored places on the planet. Could a civilization be hiding there, in underwater caves or trenches? Scientists have sent submersibles to places like the Mariana Trench, the deepest spot in the ocean, about 7 miles down. They found strange creatures like giant squid or fish that live in total darkness, but no cities or societies. The ocean floor is tough to explore, pressure is crushing, and it's pitch black. If a civilization was there, they'd need technology to survive, like sealed habitats or submarines. But even underwater, they'd leave clues, heat, vibrations, or waste that our sensors could pick up. So far, deep-sea explorations haven't found anything like that. Antarctica is another place people look to for hidden civilizations. It's remote, covered in ice, and hard to study, which makes it a hotspot for theories. Scientists have found lakes under the ice, like Lake Vostok, sealed off for millions of years. These lakes have microbes that survive in extreme conditions, which is exciting, but they're not civilizations. Some conspiracy theorists say Antarctica hides entrances to a hollow Earth or secret bases, pointing to strange satellite images or old maps like the Piri Reis map from the 1500s. Scientists say these are just natural features or mapping errors, but the mystery of Antarctica keeps people searching. Ice-penetrating radar and drilling have mapped parts of the continent's underside, but no cities or societies have turned up. What about ancient structures? Around the world, we found underground tunnels and chambers, like those under the pyramids in Egypt or in South America. In Cappadocia, Turkey, people built underground cities thousands of years ago to hide from enemies. These had rooms, kitchens, and even churches, showing humans can live underground for a while. But these weren't secret civilizations. They were temporary shelters, and their builders eventually returned to the surface. Other sites, like the tunnels in Peru or Malta, are similar, built for ceremonies, storage, or safety, not as permanent homes for a hidden society. Every time we find something underground, it gets people excited, but so far, it's all explained by known history. Could a civilization be hiding from our tools? If they're advanced, maybe they have technology to block our sensors, like cloaking devices that hide heat or vibrations. Or maybe they're so deep we can't reach them. The Earth's crust is thick, and we've only explored a tiny bit. A small cavern, a mile or two down, could be missed by seismic waves or radar. But even a hidden society would need resources, food, water, air, and energy. Growing food or running machines would produce heat, waste, or noise, and our tools are getting better at detecting those things. Satellites can spot tiny changes in the Earth's surface, like heat or magnetic shifts. Seismic networks listen for vibrations worldwide. If a civilization was active, we'd likely see some sign, even if it's faint. Let's think about what evidence we'd expect to find. A civilization needs space, big caverns or tunnels for homes, farms, and factories. They'd need food, maybe grown with artificial lights or fungi. They'd need water, tapped from underground rivers or recycled. They'd need energy, maybe from geothermal heat or something more advanced. All this activity would leave traces, heat from machines, vibrations from construction, or waste products like gases or minerals. Even a small society would produce something we could detect, like unusual magnetic fields or chemical changes in the rock. Scientists look for these things all the time, searching for oil, minerals, or earthquake patterns. and nothing has pointed to a hidden civilization. What about strange discoveries that spark theories? Sometimes people find things that seem mysterious, like unusual rocks or artifacts. In the 1800s, miners in the US claimed to find strange objects like metal tools or carvings deep in coal seams. These stories got people excited about ancient civilizations, but most turned out to be hoaxes or misidentified natural objects. In modern times, conspiracy theorists point to things like out-of-place artifacts, objects that seem too advanced for their time, like a supposed ancient battery from Iraq. But archaeologists usually explain these as ceremonial items or early experiments, not proof of a hidden society. Every time we investigate, the mystery fades, replaced by a simpler explanation. Another angle is unexplained phenomena. People report weird things, like loud booms from the ground or strange lights in remote places. In the 2010s, towns in the US heard mysterious boom sounds with no clear cause. Some said it was secret tunneling or underground bases, but scientists pointed to natural causes, like shallow quakes or frost quakes in cold climates. Lights seen near places like Mount Shasta in California get tied to hidden civilizations or UFOs, but they're often explained as natural gas releases or atmospheric effects. These phenomena keep the idea alive because we don't always have immediate answers, but they're not solid evidence. Why haven't we found anything? One reason is the Earth's size. It's huge, 8,000 miles across, and we've only explored a tiny fraction. The deepest we've gone is 7.5 miles, and most caves are much shallower. The ocean floor, which covers 70% of the planet, is mostly unmapped, with only about 20% studied in detail. Places like Antarctica or remote mountains are hard to reach, so there are still blank spots on the map. A small civilization could hide in one of those spots, especially if they're good at covering their tracks. But the bigger they are, the harder it is to stay hidden. A city of thousands would need food, water, and energy, and that would leave clues, heat, vibrations, or changes in the rock. Our tools are sensitive enough to pick up tiny signals, like the heat from a single building, so a large society would be tough to miss. Another limit is our technology. Seismic waves give us a broad picture, but they're not precise enough to spot a small cavern. Radar works for shallow depths, but not miles down. Drilling is slow and expensive, and we can't go deep enough to reach the lower crust. Submersibles can explore the ocean floor, but they cover tiny areas at a time. If a civilization is deep or well hidden, we might not have the tools to find them yet. But technology is improving. Scientists are developing better radar, more sensitive seismic sensors, and drones that can explore caves or underwater trenches. In the future, we might see things we've missed, like a hidden cavern or tunnel system. Could a civilization hide on purpose? If they're advanced, they might have ways to block our tools. Maybe they use technology to absorb seismic waves, like stealth planes avoid radar, or they live in a part of the Earth we can't reach, like under the ocean crust, or deep in the mantle, where heat and pressure make exploration impossible. But even then, they'd need resources, and getting those resources, mining, farming, or generating power, would create signals. A civilization that's completely undetectable would need technology so advanced it's almost magic, like something out of science fiction. What about historical searches? People have been looking for hidden worlds for centuries. In the 1800s, explorers like John Clave Sims wanted to find holes at the poles leading to an inner Earth. They never got the funding, and when explorers like Roald Amundsen reached the poles, they found ice and rock, not entrances. In the 1900s, scientists drilled into the Earth and mapped caves, but found no cities. Even conspiracy theorists who claim secret bases exist, like at Area 51 or under Denver's airport, haven't produced hard proof, just stories and blurry images. Every search has come up empty, but the lack of evidence doesn't stop people from looking. Future technology could change the game. Scientists are working on ways to see deeper into the Earth. Neutrino detectors, which catch tiny particles that pass through rock, could map the planet's interior in more detail. Advanced drilling techniques might let us go deeper than the Kohler borehole. Satellites with better sensors could spot faint heat or magnetic signals. In the ocean, new submersibles and drones are mapping the seafloor, finding new caves and trenches. If a civilization is out there, these tools might find them, or at least narrow down where they could be hiding. Let's think about what we'd do if we found evidence. Say we detect a strange heat signal or a hidden cavern with signs of life. Scientists would want to study it carefully, sending probes or drones to avoid disturbing the site. If it's a civilization, we'd face big questions. Are they human? Are they friendly? Do they want contact? A discovery like that would change everything, our history, our science, our view of the world. But it could also be dangerous. A hidden society might not want to be found, and forcing contact could lead to conflict. Or maybe they're so different, we can't even communicate. It's a lot to think about, and it's why scientists move slowly when exploring the unknown. For now, the evidence says a secret civilization is unlikely. Caves, drills, and sensors have found no cities or societies. Strange phenomena have natural explanations, and artifacts turn out to be hoaxes or misinterpretations. The Earth's solid structure, mapped by seismic waves, leaves little room for giant hollows, but the Earth is vast, and we haven't seen it all. There are still caves, ocean depths, and remote places we haven't explored. A small, clever society could hide in one of those spots, using technology or natural barriers to stay out of sight. Science says no to a giant inner world, but it doesn't close the door on every possibility. Why do we keep searching? It's human nature. We're curious, driven to explore the unknown, whether it's space, the ocean, or the Earth's depths. The idea of a hidden civilization is exciting because it suggests there's more to the world than we know. Every new cave, every strange signal keeps the dream alive. Even if we never find a secret society, the search teaches us about our planet, its rocks, its creatures, its history. The quest for a hidden civilization is really a quest to understand ourselves, to push the limits of what's possible, and to keep dreaming about the mysteries that might be waiting just out of reach beneath the ground.